Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home. Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Welcome to the Freebirth Society podcast. This is a radical space for women who are ready to celebrate their autonomous choices in birth, motherhood, and beyond. Together, we'll learn about wild birth through personal narrative, we'll explore the politics of birth, and we'll analyze everything that relates to our lives as women from a feminist perspective. Here's your host, Emily Saldea.
It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Hello, women. Today on the show, I am welcoming Nina, a graduate of the Radical Birth Keepers School. Nina lives out in Northern California and was transferred to the hospital in her first pregnancy after an intended home birth with a medical midwife because her blood pressure turned out to be higher than what the medical midwife was willing to support. She was induced and kept in the hospital for days on end and was imprinted with the story that Nina was broken and would not birth naturally. Nina tells us today the beautiful story of her intentionally rewriting her internal stories throughout her second pregnancy, leaning more and more into trust, self-discovery, and intuition as she prepares for her sovereign birth at home. Her free birth story is a simple, inspiring example of how easefully birth works when we don't complicate it and when we do the real work of learning to trust ourselves. This is the work that choosing sovereignty primes us for and what Nina showcases in her powerful growth. She also shares about her amazing postpartum and how being initiated into this redemptive birth showed her that she really can do anything, that she is the catalyst for her own power. On that note, I am so excited to announce to you all that we have officially opened up the waitlist for our newest, our biggest, most world-changing program yet, drumroll please, the Match4Birth Midwifery Institute. MMI is the gold standard online intensive midwifery school. It's a year-long, powerful accelerator program that's going to take you from the sidelines into the center of the professional birth arena. So picture this. Independent midwifery meets leading-edge business school, meets life-changing conscious leadership tools. MMI will have literally everything you need to fully up-level yourself, your life, and your career as a midwife. Yolanda and I have so many women reach out to us with their successes as radical birth keepers, but wanting more, wanting a longer container of mentorship, and seeking the level 2 of what we offer. And so this is it. The entire 12 months is supported by 5 epic additional spotlight teachers. You can go find out who on the website. And every student gets placed in a small mentorship pod to travel with every single month. There's really too much to say about it, so go to freebirthsociety.com/MMI waitlist and check it out. We really can't wait to be in a high-level container with you for a whole year of mentorship where you can really tap into our combined 40 years of wisdom and lived experience in midwifery. The Radical Birth Keeper School is your first step, and if you haven't heard, we halved the price to make it way more accessible to women all over, and enrollment opens on Monday. So go sign up for the RBK school and then get yourself on the wait list for MMI because classes begin in September. And we cannot wait to support the women who are really ready to take sovereign midwifery to the next level. Let's change the world. And actually, Nina, like so many stories on this podcast, is a living example of how desperately women want real, sovereign, integrity-based midwives, and how very few there actually are out there. So you can be one of them. I'm just so excited. Okay, let's dive into her story now, and I'll drop all the links in the show notes for you to explore about our program. All right. Welcome to the show, Nina.
Thank you for having me.
Calling in from where I met my husband in Santa Cruz. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's too bad we didn't know each other when we were. Have you been there for a long time?
I grew up here, yeah. And I've
Oh.
been in Bonnie Doon now for almost 5 years, I think.
We are here to cover 2 birth stories. Your little one, your free birth baby, is 4 months at the time of this recording. You took RBK, so I got to know you a little bit in there. And so just take us back to the beginning. Who are you as you get pregnant for the first time, and how are you like orienting around birth at that stage of your life?
Yeah, so I guess I'd like to start with my first pregnancy, which ended in a miscarriage in 2018, 2019, 2018. Because that was really the beginning of kind of my exploring the system and birth and where I fall in that world. I always knew I wanted to be a mom. I have a little brother who's 7 years younger than me, and pretty much felt like I've been a mom since I was 7 years old. And I pursued a career in childcare for most of my adult life just because I love kids and wanted to learn as much about raising kids before I had my own. So when my husband and I were more or less ready to have a kid, we got pregnant, I think 2018. And we weren't really sure if that was going to be the right time for us. So it's kind of a surprise. We decided to go for it. And then I had a miscarriage around 11 weeks. And I started bleeding around 8 weeks. And I went into so I'll just backtrack just a second. Like, I've always known I wanted a home birth. My mom had all her babies at home. That's part of my community. I just always knew I would do a home birth and have a midwife. Like, that was just, it wasn't like, it was a fear of mine to ever go to a hospital basically at all. So I grew up with that, in that world of not wanting to engage in the system, but still in this pregnancy, I was like, oh, I'm pregnant. I guess I'll go to the doctor. That's what you do, right? And I didn't have a lot of friends yet who had kids. So I was just going with what I thought I should do. Even though I knew eventually I would want a home birth, I decided to go to the doctor, mainstream clinic. Just had one checkup, I think, at like 6 weeks, like super early on. And then I started bleeding around 8 weeks, and then went in for intravaginal ultrasound. And that was like, and everything, they said everything was fine, and then ended up miscarrying around 11 weeks. So that was really devastating. But it set us on a path of like, yes, we want to have kids. And after that pregnancy, we decided to go on a big trip. And our daughter was conceived exactly 9 months, like around the due date of that miscarried baby. She was conceived in Ireland. And that was 2019. So that was just beautiful to have her spirit. And we were so happy, and it was so ready. And even though life was very unknown at the time, we were moving back to Santa Cruz and into Bonnie Doon, and kind of didn't really know where we were going to live or what we were doing. We were just so excited to have our baby on the way. And I still had a lot of fear of miscarrying again. So I waited, I think, till I was 13 weeks to seek out midwifery care. I hadn't heard of Freebirth at all at the time. So I was still just like, okay, I'll just get a midwife. But also at the time, we didn't really have like a home base. We were still figuring out where our home was. So I chose the midwife that was at the birthing center in town. It was the only birthing center in town, and just basically the only choice of midwife. And I kind of knew her and I liked her. So I went with her. Pregnancy was pretty straightforward. Like, my physical symptoms were normal, nauseous, blah, 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 all the things. And then I just cut to the birth, I guess, because pregnancy was, yeah. the only like stress in that pregnancy was moving, figuring out where to be, kind of big stress. But we ended up finding our house when I was like 7 months pregnant. So we moved there. And then at that point, we were planning to give birth at home. And I had some fears, but mostly my midwife was super confident. I was confident that everything was going to be fine. But it was at like the 8-month-ish mark that my blood pressure started going up.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So that was unexpected. And also just my midwife was, every time like preeclampsia was like mentioned, it was kind of like, oh, well, we won't talk about that. Like, you know, like we don't need to talk about it. And like, I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't know anything. Like, I'm not going to like research things that could go wrong before they go wrong. But once my blood pressure started going up, like every visit, it was like steadily rising. I started to, research like what to do. I got to get this blood pressure down. Like they can't attend if your blood pressure goes over 140/90. And I was like reaching that point. And I was, so pretty much I was at 39 weeks and my blood pressure was around that range. And they were kind of saying like, if it continues to be like this, we're not going to be able to attend you at home. Like we're not going to be able to do a home birth. So I was devastated and grieving and just, yeah, like so upset that I wouldn't get my dream birth. Like there was no other option that I knew of.
Totally.
So yeah, I was 39 weeks and 3 days or 4 days or something. And my water started to break. We were kind of talking to the baby, like, it's time, like things are getting a little funky here. Like, let's get this going. And then my water started to break on its own, just trickle. I went to yoga that night and like had amniotic fluid just like trickling out of me all over the yoga props. And then that night was the night that my midwives were like, yeah, you got to go in to the hospital. Like the one midwife who was my main one was like, let's sleep tonight and go tomorrow. And then she like called her other midwife who like over, I don't know, she's like more experienced, I guess. And she said, you got to go tonight, just based on the numbers. She doesn't even know me. Like I met her once. So, and I have that memory of that decision is like so clear in my body and my mind of like, I felt like everything was fine. Like my intuition was saying like, you're okay. Like you don't need to, there's no need. This is not an emergency. But I didn't have the awareness at the time to say no.
So then can you summarize what then happens in the hospital?
Yeah. So get to the hospital. They basically are like, okay, well, it's time. Oh, you'll love this. They said, the midwife that came into the hospital said, it's time to get on the labor train to Babytown. And yeah, just started the induction process. And my midwife was like, let's not tell them that your water started to break already, because then you get that time limit. So we didn't say anything about that. And I just disassociated, like as soon as I got there, like, this is not what I want. I'm, very uncomfortable. I don't like hospitals. I don't like all these strangers looking at me. I don't want an IV in me. I didn't want any of it. So yeah, I just disassociated, and luckily my body knew exactly what to do, because they gave me Cervidil, which is the first thing they do in the induction process, which is like, it's supposed to just ripen your cervix, I guess. So they gave me that, and then like an hour later, it was like midnight by then, I was having full-on contractions, just 0 to 60, like active labor. And they took it out of me. I was like puking and pooping everywhere. It was like so fast. And my water started to break more. So yeah, midnight labor starts. They took the cervidil out, and I had the monitor on me, like it was a wireless one, I think. So that was the only like annoying part of my labor, was having that monitor on me, other than
And
like,
did they not give you BP medicine?
no,
Oh, they must have been real concerned.
right?
Mm.
I know. So yeah, I didn't get anything other than the cervidil. That was all I had.
And
And
they
then
still get paid. The birth center still gets paid for such a late transfer.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was paying out of pocket for my midwife. It was like that was that.
Yeah.
And she was there. She was there for the birth. Yeah. So yeah, 12 hours later, my daughter was born, perfectly healthy, and
Oh.
it was beautiful. It was amazing. My mom was there. My best friend was there getting it on video, and everyone was watching me, like so many strangers around. But I was just in my zone, and it didn't phase me. The only part of my labor that I do remember clearly is that transition, when my sound started to change. Everybody got all flustered, like, okay, let's bring in the midwife, like, where do you want to sit? And I don't know. Leave me alone. So I remember that transition point being like very like, what's going on? Like, I guess I'm pushing now. And then I have a video of it, so I was able to look back and see what was going on. Like, the midwife had her fingers in my yoni, like stretching the whole time I was pushing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I saw that, I was just like, oh my God, that's, yeah, I'm just so sad. Like, I don't want that. I don't want anyone touching me. So I had some grief about all of that. And then, but the birth itself was beautiful and perfect, and my baby was perfect, and we were so happy. But then it was the most of the trauma from that experience happened in the days after, like the immediate postpartum, because my blood pressure, so like with preeclampsia, they say delivery is the cure and then you're good. For me, my blood pressure stayed high, elevated, whatever. And so it was 4 or 5 days before I could go home. And that's what the point where they gave me the blood pressure medication, because they were like, just take these pills and go home. Because I was like, you guys got to let me go. I can't be here anymore. This is horrible. Because when you're in the hospital there and they're monitoring you for that, whatever, having a stroke or whatever the concern is with preeclampsia, is they're, coming in every 4 hours, checking my reflexes, taking my blood pressure. It's just like, yeah, that to me was the most traumatic part, was having all of that.
Do you think you had preeclampsia?
I don't think I had preeclampsia.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed with severe preeclampsia based
Oh.
on my blood pressure numbers and my liver enzymes being elevated. I don't think I had protein in my urine, which is like one of the main things. I don't think I had that. I didn't have any physical symptoms. Like, I wasn't swelling. I didn't feel different.
They'll often also call some of that pre-eclampsia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically I had
It's not funny. It's not funny.
basically I had high blood pressure, and that was enough in the system, that's enough concern to be monitored in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get it that like they don't know what causes it or what it could do. So their thing is like, if we don't know, then we're just gonna
and their job is to prepare for a worst case scenario.
Exactly.
So the fact that a mom at the end of her pregnancy has a high BP means be on the lookout for stroke.
Yeah.
Like, that's the system you buy into when you have a medical midwife at a birth center, right? Like, without knowing it, the small, narrow, what's the word? Like, chart that you have to fit into to be allowed and supported to have a baby outside of an OB
Yeah, so
supervision?
I was outside of normal,
Mm-hmm.
and
Well, you were outside of their guidelines.
exactly. I was outside of the guidelines of normal. So therefore I could not have the home birth that I had envisioned
So
in that pregnancy.
how does that shape you? Like, how do you emerge from that birth, and how long does it take you to start critiquing it and just kind
Yeah.
of have that go into your free birth journey?
Yeah, it within the first year of motherhood, I found Freebirth Society and was like, whoa, okay. It totally blew my mind of like, oh, you can do whatever you want. You're in
Wow.
charge. Like what? You could take
I'm an adult.
responsibility.
God.
You could take responsibility for yourself and not have other people tell you what to do. It was just like amazing. And I became a mom January 2020. It was like 2020 was just the year of completely cracking open the system and where I fit in it and who I am in
Uh-huh.
this world.
And
Uh,
you're in California.
and I'm in
Eh.
California, which was so crazy. But luckily, we
Brutal.
had moved to the mountains and
Mm-hmm.
we're just like, it was a beautiful year.
It's 2020. How does that birth shape you? When do you start critiquing it? You find FBS. Is that like the immediate, like, oh shit, I got duped? Like, what happens for you?
Yeah, pretty much I found Freebirth Society and was like, oh, I I could have given birth at home. Basically, I didn't ever think anything was wrong with me. Like I mean, I was left scarred with trauma and fears that something's wrong with my body, and you know, I had to go to the hospital because something was wrong with me. And I continued to get into that story with the system, like postpartum, for a couple months. I was like going back for them to check my blood pressure and stuff. And so, yeah, it took me maybe 6 months or so to be like, what am I doing? Like, why am I engaging in this system? Like, I do not feel good about myself. I feel like something's horribly wrong with me. Nobody's reflecting back to me that my baby's perfect, and or that, well, everyone's like, of course your baby's perfect, but nobody's reflecting back to me that like I did this, like I made a perfect human, and like I'm thriving, I'm doing well. I would just kept getting the messages like you're broken and you're not, yeah, you'll
That's
and
so
I knew
tough.
I wanted more kids, and after that birth I was like, I don't know if I can do it again. Like I'm really scared that I'm going to have high blood pressure again and die basically, like if I don't go to the hospital. So, and I do not want to give birth in the hospital again. That was very clear to me. So I got pregnant again, and my daughter was 2.5, and we, yeah, I mean, we consciously conceived, I would say, because we knew we wanted more. The timing was what it was. We were on Hawaii, so we were kind of just on vacation mode, which is what I needed to fully allow that pregnancy to come forth. And I knew it from before we were pregnant. My husband and I had talked about free birth, and yeah, so we had about 2.5 years to kind of work on. I had that time to work on myself and realize like free birth is what I want, and I'm committed to that. And once I was really actually pregnant, it was like, okay, like now it's time to do the deep work to really get that, have that birth that you really want and birth in power. And so I didn't take a pregnancy test, even though I really wanted to. I knew we were pregnant. Like I knew we had sex when I was ovulating. It was like obvious that I was pregnant. But those like 2 weeks before I started feeling nauseous was like, I really want to know for sure. But I waited, and then I got really nauseous, and it was rough times. But got through that nausea. The rest of the pregnancy physically was really good. I felt really healthy. I was monitoring my own blood pressure because I had this story that if I'm if I don't do that, it's irresponsible. Like since I'm not going to the doctor or doing anything with the system, I have to do that for myself. So I was monitoring it until, and I'll say too that my blood pressure had always stayed elevated. Like 130 over 80 was my new normal, and like 120 over 70 is like quote unquote normal. So I was monitoring it until about the third trimester, when it did start to get a little higher. And then I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, it's just bringing me so much stress. Like, the stress of getting my blood pressure taken is it's enough to raise it. Like, I have so much anxiety around my blood pressure because of having to, what I went through with my first pregnancy, that I realized I shouldn't do that anymore.
Can you speak a little bit more about like the full rejection of the medical system? Because like, why not have a home birth midwife that helps you assess, and then if she wants to transfer, you would just stay home, or like, what most people do.
Yeah, I didn't want to fight somebody. Like, I'll just say, like, 2020 and that birth experience in general just made me very averse to anybody telling me what to do. Like, I'm already that way. And then 2020 was like, no. Do not tell me what to do with my body, with my health, with my children. Like, I know what's best for me and my family. So just stay out of my business. So that really, like, was quite strong. That side of me became very fierce and strong. And I had many friends have kids right after me in those 2 years, and they all had midwives, and most of them transferred for one reason or another. And I just said, this is not right. Something is not right about this. Like, they were non-emergency transfers.
Of course.
They were just stalled labor or baby stuck or stuff like that. So it just made me really question the licensure of midwifery, and that, like, I'm not going to hire somebody and then at the end fire them after I've given them all my money. Like, that didn't make any sense to me. And I did look into birth keepers, like graduates of RBK school, and I toyed with the idea of having somebody there. But everybody, well, the one woman was pregnant at the exact same time as me, which was cool because we just became friends and had our babies one day apart.
Cute.
Yeah. So it was great to be, connect with her. But it was like everybody I kept trying to reach out to either was pregnant or wasn't available. So I just thought, okay, like, I really don't need anybody. I really do feel confident that, me and my husband can do this. Like, he was totally on board, and just felt like what I actually really wanted when I looked at what I wanted was I just wanted it to be me and my husband. And that's what ended up happening. So I will say in my pregnancy, like, or I guess I'll say that in my journey with the high blood pressure preeclampsia diagnosis stuff, I did go on like some health research and, change my diet a little bit. Like, I already had a pretty good diet, but I did do like I got more into Weston A. Price Foundation diet and the root cause protocol. And like, I did kind of like do some fleshing out of health. But then at a certain point, I was like, this is just, I just have high blood pressure. Like, maybe this is just a thing for me. And what really helped me heal that story was that just connecting to my intuition and trust that, like, I'm okay. And I know what it feels like when I'm not okay. So just like knowing myself and where I fall on that, like, I'll know if something's not okay, basically. So just really like fine tuning that trust was huge for me in rewriting this story that I'm broken and, need someone to save me. And yeah, during that pregnancy, my dad passed away, which obviously was a lot to process during a pregnancy anytime. And then that winter was like the craziest storms ever. And like we had a branch from a redwood tree come through our roof on like a crazy stormy night.
Oh my God.
So there was quite a bit of like intense stress and things going on in that pregnancy that really like tested my.
Wait. Were you asleep?
Oh, we were trying to sleep. It was so loud.
Okay, so were you awake when the branch?
Actually, yeah, we were asleep when the branch came through.
And where in the house?
2 shards of glass, like all over us.
Wait, it went through the roof.
Yeah, it went through. So it's like we lived in a cob house. It was like it had like an Oculus window on top.
Oh.
It went through that window. And usually we'd be sleeping on the loft, but that night was so intense and we were hearing things falling on the roof that we were just
fuck that.
Probably go down.
Oh my
like,
gosh.
Let's try to be as safe as we can. Like, we're not gonna, it was like middle of the night in a storm, like we're not gonna drive anywhere. The safest thing we could do is just like get in the lowest corner of the house.
Whoa.
Oh my God. And so that was the scariest night of my life. Like, that was so scary. And I felt fear like I've never felt. And I was like praying like I've never prayed. And honestly, like that experience during this pregnancy was so remarkable because I really like got into this fear, like what it feels like when something is really not okay, really not good. And knowing that like I will do whatever I need to do, like your instincts just kick in. Like, I will do what I need to do to stay safe and keep my family safe. And having that like confidence with the birth really helped me know that like if something's wrong, if there's like anything wrong, I will know and I will do what I need to do to stay safe and keep my family safe. Like, we want to live, basically.
Right.
We want to live, we want our babies to live, and we will do whatever we can to make that happen. So yeah, I mean, the biggest fears in having a free birth and, not having anyone there is like, am I going to die or is my baby going to die? Like, that's the biggest fear. And yeah, I mean, I just got to a point, and with the help of being in the RBK school during like my second and third trimester, really got to the point of like, I am so confident in my choices that and whatever happens, I know is the right thing. Like, the faith, the choice, like the following the intuition, I just knew what I needed to do. And I had to, at that point, trust that everything was going to be okay, no matter what happened.
All right, so take us into your birth story.
Yeah, so then let's see, my daughter was born at 39 weeks, like relatively on her time. And so once I hit 40 weeks with this pregnancy, I was like, okay. Are you gonna come yet? Like, I thought you were maybe gonna come, like, you think it's gonna be the same or something. But yeah, and then I felt like I was waiting for about a week. I was like, okay, are you gonna come yet? Like, I'm ready for you. And he was a very quiet baby. Like, he moved around, but like spiritually, he was not telling me anything. He was not coming to my dreams. We knew he was a boy because my daughter knew it was a brother, and we were feeling that too. So we knew it was a boy, but we really didn't know anything else. And no, yeah, it was just weird for me not to have any communication. But I knew he was good, and I was just surrendering to his timing. And I started losing my mucus plug around like 41 weeks. And that was like of a couple days of in the night having like a little more serious sensations. I could still sleep, but they were like kind of I was like, would wake up and be like, I could have a baby by the morning. Like, this is it. But then I would end up just going back to sleep. And then during the day was this like normal day. And I knew like losing my mucus plug was a sign things were happening. So I kind of felt like for a couple days, things are happening. Like, could be a while, but I'm just gonna like go with the flow here. And then I think it was a Sunday. Yeah, so that was like Friday and Saturday. And then the Sunday, I rested all day. I was just like, I really feel like it's going to happen soon. So I'm just going to rest. And I put my daughter to bed around 8 o'clock and fell asleep with her up in our loft. And I woke up around 10. Or my husband came in. He was like outside whittling a spoon. And he comes in and he's like, I just broke my spoon. And then I wake up and go pee and hear a pop and my water breaks. And it just starts trickling. It's not like a huge gush, but it trickles. And I start like kind of shivering, shaking and feeling like I'm going to have diarrhea. And it was like 0 to 60, just my water started breaking and it was on. And I labored for about an hour inside. Like we had like our bathroom was outside, like we had like a bathhouse toilet situation outside. So I brought like a toilet inside so I could sit on the toilet and labor on the toilet, labored on the bed. Every time my husband would like come in, it would hurt so much more.
That's funny.
He was just like he was just like the kind of guy, just like things need to get done, I'll just do it. So like as soon as I'm in labor, he's like getting the things ready. And I had it in my head that I would want to be alone my labor. But every time he would come in the room, I would just like it would hurt so bad, I would need him. And
oh, interesting.
Yeah, I would like put on this like, oh God, it's so intense, and like want him there.
Feel bad for me.
Yeah, feel bad for me.
Aren't I amazing?
This is so hard.
It is interesting what happens when you're alone and you don't have anyone to say that stuff to.
Yeah. And yeah, I did notice the contractions that he was not there for. I just, it was still hard, but I was like not as like I was
interesting.
just in it. So yeah, for an hour I was doing that, and then I was like, I know it's too soon, but I really need the bath. And my vision the whole time was that I wanted to have him in the bath. And it had only been an hour, but I was like, we got to go to the bath. Like I need that comfort of the warm water. So we went to our bathhouse was like outside, and we went out there. And then like every contraction, he was pouring hot water on my back. I was on my hands and knees, kind of like leaned over the side of the tub. And it felt so good to have that warm water. It was just heaven. So yeah, I was only in there for about an hour, and then my water breaks around 10 a.m. And then I say the only mistake that he made was he told me what time it was at midnight. He's like, it's midnight. And he's thinking like, maybe I'll call, because my mom was on backup call for if we needed her for my daughter, or if we just needed her. She was on backup call. So he was kind of thinking like, maybe we should call her. Like, I don't want to be checking in on our daughter and then having to come back. And so he told me it was midnight, and I was like, it's only been 2 hours. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, it was already so hard and so intense. And now I realize that was my transition moment.
Right. Second time mom, baby.
Yeah, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And then I had the urge to poop. And I was like, why am I pooping right now? This is not supposed to happen after 2 hours. Like, I should not be pooping. So I like got out of the tub, or I think I pooped in the tub, and then I'm like, just refill it. Like, we have time, we've got plenty of time.
Famous last words.
Yeah. So he's like cleaning out the tub and refilling it. I'm on the toilet, like screaming, like, what the hell is going on? And then because I had felt to see if there was a head, like not soon before that. I was like, I don't feel anything. It's probably gonna be a while. And then I felt at that point when I was pooping, I was like, oh, it's the head. Okay. Like, duh, I should have known that's what that sensation is. But it was just so fast and so furious, and like the pressure on my butt was just so intense. So yeah, I was like between the toilet and the bathtub, and his head was halfway out, and I'm like, I'm having this baby in the bathtub.
Did you make
So
it?
I made it to the bathtub, and I'm on my hands and knees with like, I don't know, 2 inches of water.
You're like, by God, my kneecaps will be wet.
Yes. I will have a bathtub birth. Yeah, and his head's fully out, and my husband's right behind me, and we're both just have our hands on his head, and that's just my most precious memory is us both with our hands on his head, and like I'm feeling his tiny little ears, and my husband, and I'm asking like, is his whole head out? My husband's like, yeah, I can see his face. And we have our hands on his head, and we're just like, we love you, baby, like we're ready for you, like we're so excited to meet you. Next contraction, fully out, cries, like I'm in shock, just like, what just happened? And he's perfect. I think the first thing I said was, he's perfect, like he's our baby. And yeah, so I'm like sitting in an inch of lukewarm water, and pretty uncomfortable and in shock. And I think my husband goes inside to like get the bed ready or something, I don't know. He disappears, and I'm like left alone there, like, oh my God, we just had a baby, we did it. Like we fucking did it. And yeah, so then the cord was long enough that I could hold him and walk out back to the bed, and delivered the placenta on the bed. I was pretty anxious to get the placenta out so I could just be done and rest. And so I'm on the bed, like yanking on the cord, the placenta comes out. And then at that point, my daughter wakes up. She's up in the loft, and she wakes up, and we're like, Tara, come down and meet your baby brother. The baby's here. And she's like, just woke up in the middle of the night, like, what the heck is that? Looking down at us. And she eventually comes down, and yeah, we just revel in our new baby that just arrived. And I was trying to remember if I ate something right away, or I don't remember. I think we just like cuddled up and all went to sleep and woke up the next morning because it was midnight. He was born at 12:30 a.m.
In your first birth, when you were held in the hospital, other than the stress of that, you felt fine, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. So I had never had a baby before. So postpartum, I don't know if like the dizzy feeling or the weak feeling was just because I just had a baby.
Or
Or
were you dizzy for days, or just like when you got up the first time kind of thing?
It was like occasional lightheadedness, maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
And then how is the immediate postpartum with your free birth?
I felt totally good. Well, I mean, I never felt any dizziness with this one. Yeah. I'd say that was the only symptom that they were like looking out for that I thought that I may have had, was dizziness in the first.
It's just so interesting because when you zoom out, it's like a grieving mother who goes into a scary environment she never wanted to be in with strangers, who then disassociates and then is sexually assaulted during the birth. Like when you stack everything, it's like, isn't dizziness like an understandable result as a woman is orienting to the previous 24 hours? Like right? That's never considered in
Mm-hmm.
allopathy. It can't be. It's not a part of that consciousness, but
Mm-hmm.
they hone in, on such a specific thing. Okay, a high BP. Okay. That's like one. I'm not saying that doesn't matter, right? Everything matters.
Yeah.
Every piece of the puzzle matters. But what does the rest of the puzzle look like? And what else is going on? So it's not lost on me that you have no dizziness in this next birth. That is grounded. It's what you wanted.
Yeah.
It's well supported. It's in your own home. You catch your own baby. They're like da 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 da, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, that's so deeply relevant to the health of mother baby. And that's obviously the piece that's missing, and kind of the big irony around everyone, being so obsessed with leaving their houses and birthing with strangers, and then proving to themselves that they needed it because something funky presents.
Yeah.
It's like, well, right. Like it's you've set the tone for something funky. I'm not saying you, I mean like anyone,
Yeah.
to present. And who would you
Yeah.
be if you birthed in the safest, healthiest, most intact environment?
Yeah. I mean,
Which
I'm
is why stories like
super,
yours matter, because then for you to not feel dizzy in this next birth, and after a 2-hour birth, like that's pretty damn quick. That's
yeah.
pretty woof. That's
Yeah.
gonna throw anyone,
That
right?
was
In some,
intense.
yeah, hell yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But it was also grounded and in your own home, and like you had all the pieces biologically, physiologically, to handle a 2-hour birth.
Oh yeah.
Nothing like traumatized you,
No, it was what
right?
my body knew what to do, and it
It's
just did
doing.
it. Like my I just took a step back and let my body do it. And it felt so healing to just not have to go anywhere after that. Like
Right.
that was the most healing piece to this birth for me, was like I didn't leave the house for 2 weeks. I stayed in bed. I only let people around me that I love and trust and care about, that care about me. And that just felt like the piece that was really missing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really, my whole point, like I was planning for postpartum more than I was planning for the birth. Like I was just like so excited about my postpartum.
Totally.
Um, and so excited to have another chance to do it, because I
Yeah.
last time didn't do it the way I would have liked to, with what I knew at the time. And yeah, so it's just so healing to be able to just stay in bed and have friends bring us food and not feel like I have to do anything but be in bed with my baby. And definitely takes a lot more planning with the second, because there's now a 3-year-old there. Had to like get her out of the house every afternoon so I could have a nap. But yeah, it was such a beautiful time, and I like miss it now at this point in my postpartum, like 4 months. I have to like do everything now
I know.
with a baby attached to me all the
Wow.
time. Where?
It's so hard. I miss my postpartum too. I'm coming up on, at the time of this recording, his 1 year is in 3 days.
Oh
And
my
so
gosh. Wow.
it's like the same season that I birthed in a year ago. Like my mom is here. Like there's all these kind of things that feel like it. And yeah, oh, it was so good. I miss it. So in closing, how would you articulate how, like, who you are now and how this has shaped you and the rest of your life by actualizing this choice?
Yeah. At this point, with the reflections that I've had thus far, I feel like there will be more as time goes on, but I feel like it's really a catalyst for me in believing that I can do anything. Like I can, whatever I put my mind to and commit to, I can do. That was huge story for me of like, just all the can'ts in my life. So just like knowing that if I'm really committed to something, like this birth was I was so
True.
committed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's proof. Like I did it. Like I did it. And also for me, like the story that I had about myself even prior to my first birth, just that like something's wrong with me, that my body's not functioning well. I've always been like a bit of a hypochondriac, like something's, you know, anything to like latch onto and be like, I'm ill, like this is not right. That story is definitely starting to crumble. I wouldn't say it's fully out, but it's starting. I'm starting to really realize that my body is wise, that I just proof that like I've had two very beautiful, healthy pregnancies and children come from my body. Like this body is amazing. It's truly amazing. It's something to be so grateful for, and to really believe, you know, that I am okay. And yeah, so those are the main things right now that are coming to mind.
Love it. It's reminding me of a birth I attended a couple years ago, where afterwards she just kept saying, not even to us, she just like kept saying, so sweet. She would go, what can't I do? What can't I do? What can't I do now? What can't I do? What can't I do? She just kept saying it. We were like, yeah. Rewrite that shit.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so sweet.
It truly is so powerful. It's so powerful.
God, it really is. Amazing.
Yay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Such an honor to talk to you.
I hope you enjoyed the show today. You can support this podcast by donating to it on freebirthsociety.com and leaving an awesome review on whatever platform you listen on. The more reviews, the more visibility the show gets, so let's spread the word of sovereign birth. We've always got a lot going on at Free Birth Society, and you can find out about all of it at freebirthsociety.com, at Free Birth Society on Instagram, and opt in to my newsletter below in the show notes. We offer courses on free birth, authentic midwifery, and the blood mysteries, as well as one-on-one coaching, in-person retreats, and of course, our annual Women's Festival. Our exclusive, vetted, private membership is definitely something to check out if you're looking for a community of wise sisters. Together we rise. We must speak our stories, claim our lives, and support one another. This is the living revolution, and I am so grateful to be in it with all of you. I'll leave you with our epic Free Birth Society theme song, Wild Woman by Aruba Red.
I honor you for the wisdom you held, the ancient traditions of plant medicine and womb magic. I feel the spirit of the ancestors as I place my hands upon my belly. This sacred portal will be honored. Eons upon light beams of survival, withstanding the eradication of our power by design. I will not allow the separation of our young to be forced upon me. My sisters will no longer birth in captivity. The picket line redefined from burning our wild women to paralyzing us and drugging our babes. Strapped down in a clinical white bed, drying up the milk from our breasts. Keep your needles. My family will never again be doomed to chase those dragons or your poison. We reject your fear. We choose love. Everything with intention. Death, ascension. I will fly and bring her back from the stars.